I'm John Fesh, and today we're going to be talking about a couple of good topics for you. We're going to start off by talking about houseplants at the beginning of the season. I think it's a pretty appropriate topic. Scott, you're going to take the lead.
Yes, right now, houseplants are starting to feel the full effect of being indoors. If we brought them in from outdoors from this fall, that they're adapting to the lower light value, and some of those plants are starting to show a little bit of stress. And I just want to talk about a couple different things that we're starting to see in houseplants. I brought this particular peace lily in, and you can see on here that first off, the plant is wilting and that it's showing me that it needs to be watered. But if you start looking at the tips of the leaves over here, you can see that they're starting to turn brown. Some of them have started to flake off. And this is a sign that of a couple different possibilities what could be going on. One of them is that our water comes from the Platte River, so it's high in mineral content. So a lot of times those minerals will start to develop on the root system of the plant. And the best thing that you can do to help remedy that is to stick it in the kitchen sink or the shower, depending on how big the plant is, and just let water run through it for a couple minutes. Maybe a minute to 2 minutes. You don't have to really shower it, but you can help break those salts off of the base of the root system of the plant. Another thing that could be going on is that right now our furnaces have been on for a good 6 weeks, so it's pretty dry inside, and low humidity can cause the tips of a lot of our leaves to start to turn brown. It used to be thought that we could take a squirt bottle and just mist the plant. And that hasn't really proven to do anything except for make the plant dirty. And you leave these awful little water spots. And what you can actually do is go to your favorite hobby store and pick up some basic marbles and put them in a tray. And what we're doing is making a humidity tray. You can use pie pans, anything of that type of nature. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So what that does is what we're going to be doing is taking this container, this drip tray, and we're going to fill it to almost the very top of it with water, and we're just going to set our plant, let me pop this guy out, this plant, we're going to sit it right on top. And what this does is, as that water evaporates from the bottom of the tray, it just helps improve the humidity around the plant.
And that's pretty important, really, Scott, because you start thinking about where these plants are more native to. It's not eastern Nebraska.
No.
So these are typically central and south Florida plants where it's just naturally more humid most of the year. So we're trying to recreate those kind of conditions.
Right, right. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is these plants are not aquatic plants. We don't want this to be sitting in water. We just want it to be sitting above the pebbles where it's going to be getting and benefiting from that humidity. So you can have a lot of fun with it. You can have take some time, you can decorate it, you can change out the marbles for the different seasons. It just gives you something fun to do. So it's easy to do, inexpensive. Drip trays, pie pans, anything of that nature is really easy to do. I also want to talk about fertilizer. This is the time of the year that we want to start pausing on fertilizing plants because plants are actively growing indoors. So one of our first things that we do when we see a plant that's in distress is we reach for our favorite fertilizer.
That's kind of a natural response. I want to help the plant out a little bit, trying to provide a little TLC for the plant.
Right, and we can actually be doing more damage than good because fertilizers are nutrition. They're not plant food. Right. It's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have to feed the plant, and that's not the case. The plant is growing a photosynthesize and makes its own food. What the fertilizer actually is like vitamins or nutrition to keep the plant healthy. But if your plant is stressed out, we want to be taking a look at what might be going on and not reaching for your favorite fertilizer because you can do more damage than good.
Probably maybe once a month during the growing season when the plants are actively putting on growth, maybe in April, May, June, July.
Right.
And then kind of tapering off, and maybe only one time over the entire winter would you want to fertilize.
Right, because too much of a good thing can actually be bad. So we just really want to pay attention to what our plant is telling us. One thing that I know that I am I do this all the time. I recycle, I reuse my drip trays all the time. But one thing that we don't take in consideration is when we water our plants and then the water evaporates or we drain it, that we get left behind is a tray full of either fertilizer salts, mineral salts. So every time we're watering the plant, those fertilizer salts don't leave this tray. So we can be exposing the plant to more fertilizer or more salts that can actually do some damage. So one of the things that we want to be doing is draining out the trays and cleaning them. It makes it look a little bit more tidy, a little bit cleaner, but we also help reduce the chance of doing any further damage to the plant. And that also goes back to the containers. Terracotta pots are a staple in the garden industry. They're nice, they're inexpensive, they have just a really homey appeal to them. But as you can see from this particular pot, it seems some days on it. And with terracotta pots that we don't always appreciate is that it's porous. So what happens a lot of times is that when the water evaporates out from the pot, that we get mineral deposits on the actual container. So when we have terracotta pots, it's good to get out an old toothbrush that we're never going to use and scrub it off so we can help clean it up. So that way we're not getting any mineral deposits on the container and which can actually do some damage.
Usually you get it, if you go to the dentist, you get a new one every 6 months.
Yeah.
At least my dentist always gives me a new one.
So, I mean, a toothbrush is a great way to help combat a lot of different things. But what a lot of people have started moving towards is inexpensive plastic pots. They're nice looking, but they're not porous, so we don't have to worry about any of those minerals being transported out of the pot that can do some damage to the plant. However, we're starting to see a trend in decorative containers is that they don't come with holes anymore.
Yeah.
People like to call and ask us how much water should we be giving the plants, and we want to give the plant enough water till it comes out the bottom of the pot.
Yeah.
That way we know that the roots are at the bottom of the container. It's not up top. So what we want to do is water till it comes out of the bottom of the pot and then drain off any of that excess water and we can put it back in its spot. So when you're watering till it comes out of the bottom, that is the best thing that you could be doing.
About 10% on average, 10 to 15% of the total volume that you put onto a plant in terms of humidifying it and giving it the water it needs. That's how much should drain out the bottom of the pot. So it's nice to have a slop sink or some kind of utility sink where they can be. I think that's going to allow that to excess water to drain out, because if it's cold and it's winter and here in November, December, January, you want to take it outside.
Yeah. And that does bring up, right now, since the plants are inside, we have them in little decorative containers. With the holiday season upon us, we're buying poinsettias, cyclamens that come in those tin foils that we never take in consideration that tin foil does not allow water to come through.
Right.
So much like this wicker pot that it's in, this peace lily, take the plant out to water it, let the water drain out, and then stick it back in the decorative container. It's just a nice way to make sure that we're keeping our plants healthy because this container here doesn't allow for any type of water to drain out of the bottom. So that's another thing that you want to be doing.
Yeah, you know that decorative foil is almost kind of a given. It's almost a default. And it's kind of just like the internet. It's the best thing and it's the worst thing. It's beautiful and it really helps to tidy up a pot that's otherwise kind of unattractive. I mean, we said it ourselves. This pot wasn't all that attractive. So it covers that up, but it also retains too much water. Sometimes another technique you might want to think about is just getting a pocket knife and stabbing the bottom of the pot a few times just to let that water seep out. And again, if you had a catch tray or you put it in the slop sink, that would work out pretty well. So some way to, some mechanism to get that excess water off.
Right. And we're beginning questions about water. I mean, should we be using distilled water, the room temperature water, all that fun stuff? And the best answer that I have is none of us took a cold shower this morning. We don't want cold tap water to be watering our plants. So take that water, put it in a milk jug, let it come to room temperature, which takes a couple hours.
Yeah.
Then you could go ahead and water, because plants are very similar. Like people, they don't want, excuse me, they don't want cold water. So keep that in mind as you're watering your plants. And it doesn't hurt, because plants are inside, the windows are closed, to stick the plants in the sink or the shower and just wash them off, because plants will get dust on them. So it's a great way to just clean the plant off. It helps wash off any type of insects that could be hiding on the plant, and the plant will be happier in the long run.
Well, and you know, we have low light levels in the winter, probably only 10% of what we had outdoors. A lot of times people have these plants on their patios, and they are great patio planters. But when you bring it indoors, you have a great reduction in light. And so the dust on the leaf can sometimes even just get in the way of light hitting the leaf like it should. You know, here in the studio, we obviously have really nice light, but that can not be the case many times when you're in a regular home. So cleaning the leaf does a great job of, like you said, cleaning off the insects, getting rid of the dust, and just returning the plant to a little bit of health, or at least giving it a fighting chance.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions about your plants, bring in a couple samples to the extension office. We're on 8015 West Center Road, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. We like fresh samples, so stick something in a Ziploc baggie, but don't leave it in the car. Even with the cold, that could do some damage, and we might not be able to tell what's going on.
Sometimes we can't tell whether it's a plant or not.
Yeah.
Some of the samples that come in, so it
little-
is helpful.
Yeah, so we'd be more than happy to help you out, but there's a couple different insects out there like aphids, spider mites, mealybugs, and one of the best defenses is just water. Just sticking them into the sink, hosing them off, and you can dislodge a lot of those insects. And taking that old toothbrush and just brushing those bugs off will really make a big difference.
Well, I think we've covered a variety of things today about houseplants. We know that you need to take the original location where these plants are from into account. We need to think about what is suitable for them. Bright light, humidity, that pebble tray you talked about earlier is a good tip. And if you just do those simple things, a little bit of cleaning, plants will be in pretty good shape, and you'll have success until it's time to maybe return them outdoors again.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for watching this segment here on houseplants indoors. And remember to Go Big Red. Visit us on the Go Big Red website, and you can get more information there. This is Scott, and I'm John, and we're with Nebraska Extension.